Hello students, today we are going to study our interesting poem London written by William Blake. Here is the image of the writer. He was born on 28 November 1757. He passed away on 12th August 1827. Here is the place where William Blake was buried. He wrote the famous poems. London was published in the Songs of Experience in 1794. The other poems are The Tiger, The Lamb, A Prison Tree, The Songs of Innocence. The Bible was an early and profound influence on Black. He was an English poet, painter, printmaker, largely unrecognized during his lifetime. He is considered a seminal figure in the history of English poetry and visual arts of Romantic age. He was a great thinker. Now, here are some quotes from the writer. He wrote, I quote, "It is easier to forgive an enemy than to forgive a friend," unquote. True. When some person does something wrong and he becomes an enemy, we think that he's an enemy, and there's some type of reconciliation. We can forgive that enemy. But when we come to know that a friend has done this mischief on the basis of belief, definitely it is impossible to forgive a friend. The another quotation, to see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. It is a fine quotation based on imagination. The next quotation is true and meaningful. Art is the tree of life, science is the tree of death, he commented. Now we come to the point, London. Actually, London is a symbolic figure. The life in London symbolizes the urbanization, the ills of the metropolitan cities, the evils which are taking in the big cities, and the poet writes, I quote, I wander through each charted street, near where the charted Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet marks of weakness and marks of woe. The poet was a resident of London. He was not a visitor. And once he happened to visit the famous places, the famous charted street, the famous places where the civilized people of London were living. Chartered street, the people of civilization where the rules are followed, where the constitution is observed, and he happened to visit those places. He also happened to visit the river Thames. Charted Thames does flow. Thames River is considered as a symbol of liberty, as a symbol of freedom. And near the banks of the river Thames, the high class society live in London. And the poet happens to visit those places which are known for liberty, which are known for freedom, which are known for the law. And the poet visited all these places, the charted streets and the charted Thames. He observed, every mark in every face I meet, marks of weakness and marks of woe. The poet observed, the poet saw, the poet experienced that every face was telling his story of pain and suffering. There were signs of weakness in their mind, in their psychology. The poet also happened to read the marks of woe, the marks of suffering on their faces. In see in what manner the poet describes the urban life. The urban life is full of weakness and marks of woe. It was due to the impact of the Industrial Revolution. And next the poet says, in every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every band, the mind force miracles I hear. The poet writes that the repetition of the every word, One, two, three, four, five. Five times the repetition of the word every in a 4 lines. In every cry of every man, the poet listened and found that in every voice of the every man, what was there? There was fear, there was pain, there was misery. The poet also happens to hear the voice of the infants, the newly born babies, and there were cries of fear. Even the infants were afraid by the injustice that was being done to the people of the society. In every voice, in every band means declaration. The mind force miracles are here. The poet happens to hear miracle means change. The change which are uh, developed by the mind, which are taken by the mind, which are considered by the mind. I here remember the quotation of Rousseau, the famous social thinker, that man is born free, but society changes him. Society change means it is the society which creates the atmosphere for the living of the people. And the poet finds that in every voice, in every band, everywhere there were chains of society. There were chains of suffering. There were chains of law. There, the people suffer. The people fail to enjoy the life of freedom and liberty. Now the poet described the fate of the poor children. What was the condition of the poor children in London itself? How the chimney sweepers cry, every blackening church appalls, and those hapless soldiers' sigh runs in blood down palace wall. The poet described the situation of the chimney sweepers. What is the condition in London? In London, there are chimneys, and all the time they burn. Inside the chimneys, the ashes are stocked, the ashes are piled. And the small children are forced to enter those chimneys, to clean those chimneys. And when they enter the chimneys, the children feel suffocation. They could not take breath and they die away. And the poet says that the rich people exploit these poor chimney sweepers. They die away. They exploit the poor people. They exploit the poverty of these poor people. And the poet also pointed out the corruption that was taking place in the church. Every blackening church appalls. Even the buildings of the church were becoming black. There were two regions of the building of church becoming black. One was of the fog of the chimney. Second, that was the corruption that was taking place in the church. The holy people, the people of the church, were not honest. They were doing corruption, and here William Black points out the corruption that was taking place inside the church. And the poet also noticed the helpless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. The poet also noted the future of the soldiers, that the soldiers were put to death for small offenses. They were put to slaughter for small offenses. And the soldiers express unhappiness over these laws. And they are butchered, they are hung on the death, and their blood comes out, and that passes near the palace where the king was living. In what manner the poet described that even where the personalities of the city, where the authorities of the city, prime ministers, king were living there, the injustice was there, the people were suffering, soldiers were suffering, and the injustice was being done to them. And that manner the poet described the fate of the poor children. The poet described the corruption in the church. The poet also described the future of the soldiers and in what manner they were put to death. That blood was running near the palace, near the palace, Buckingham Place, where the emperor of the king of the England was living there. All things was happening there near the authorities. Black points out this corruption. Next, the poet described the fate of the harlots, the prostitutes. And the poet happens to visit those places at the time of night. I quote, "But most through midnight streets I hear how the youthful harlots curse, blast the newborn baby infant's tear, blights with plague with the marriage here is." The poet described the fate of these prostitutes and their children. When the soldiers were put to death, the wives were not allowed to remarry. And they became harlots, they became prostitutes. And they cursed the marriage laws. because that the marriage has become a just like plague to them. The marriage system has become just like a coffin to them, and they could not live freely. And they are forced to become prostitutes. And the newborn babies, infant tears, even the newly born babies are without father. They could not give name to the children of their father. That's why they blast the newborn infant's tear and blasted with plague with marriage. Here the poet observes that these prostitutes do not support the marriage laws because they were forced to remarry, but they're not allowed to this time of system. And the poet says that even injustice was there. And in that manner, Black describes the fate of the harlots, the prostitutes of the city that was happening near London, that was happening in London. It is happening everywhere. That's why the poem is very important. Uh, Actually, the poet describes the situation of London, but it is happening all over the big cities of the world. Either it is Delhi, either it is Calcutta or New York, what may be. These people, the impact of urbanization. Now I come to the theme of the poem. Theme of urban life and the corruption and the childhood. See in what manner the chimney sweepers are forced to enter the chimneys. They feel suffocation. They die away inside the chimneys. The poet also describes the corruption of the church. The poet also describes the urban life where every face is marked, every face is painted with happiness, unhappiness, and misery. The poet also point out in what manner the innocent childhood is deserted by the adults, by the lawmakers. There is corruption in the church. The poet also points out the weaknesses in the marriage laws. Civil law, where the common people suffer. The poet points out that that was happening in the big cities and near the authorities, near the people of authority live there. The poet also points out the future of the prostitute children. They were without future, they were without name. It was the impact of the Industrial Revolution. The poet happens to hear the cries of men, women, and children all suffer, all live a life of misery and sorrow. The speaker is pained to see misery and oppressive society. Who is responsible? Mankind is responsible. The lawmakers are responsible. The big authorities are responsible for this oppressive society. The poet wants to say that it is a failure of mankind to build a society based on love, joy, and freedom, communion with God. William Blake wants to say that we fail to build a society where we can live happily with love, freedom, and communion with God. We can have spiritual feelings. William Blake was influenced by the ideas of Rousseau, a great social thinker, a great French social thinker. I quote, "A man is born free, but society changes him," unquote. It is true, man is born free, but these are the chains of society, mind force manacles. Where the life of the man is chained, where where the life of the man is completely controlled by the laws and people suffer. Here, London symbolizes all the big cities of the world. The poet describes the impact of urbanization and industrial revolution. Now, here is the London Bridge, charted London Thames, and the poet describes the situation of that city. Thanks.